When Mike Williams last graced the Pechakucha stage, he delighted us all with graphic sexual imagery. Nothing symbolises the eroticism of the rural community so much as an enthusiastic AI man, begloved and up to his armpits in a bovine's private parts. Since those heady days, Mike has been overcome with a combination of honest work and self-deprecating humility. So much so that, unlike his fellow 10 speakers this evening, he has not found time to supply us with an up-to-date CV. I have had, therefore, to fall back on my own resources. Some of what follows may be inaccurate. Mike Williams' early success as a deputy to Wild Bill Hickok was cut short in 1871 when he was shot by his employer. No matter. In more recent times, Mike's enjoyed the position of President of the New Zealand Labour Party and Deputy Editor of the New Musical Express, and once played lead trumpet in the Count Basie Orchestra. He's the current CEO of the American mortgage brokerage firm Fannie Mae and is both offensive lineman for the Washington Redskins and a wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ladies and gentlemen, a jack of many trades, Mike Williams!
Thank you. No cows this time. Okay, so the year was 1950, and it was the beginning of the space race between the Americans and the Ruskies. And so the Yanks were about to send some rockets into the desert, and a young engineer there, Edward J. Murphy Jr., was a young engineer, and he was about to start a universal constant, Murphy's Law, previously known as when Mr. Fuck-Up comes to town. Murphy reported to Lieutenant Stapp, and Stapp was the pilot for a rocket sled G-force test, basically to go as fast as they possibly could before all the blood pooled and was pushed to the back of his skull. It later became a Disneyland ride. Stapp was almost killed when someone put the sensors in backwards. Luckily, he ran out of track before any permanent damage happened. So that's Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So having learnt to check Murphy's work, the Mariner program kicked off. About a $500 million program. It was the first interplanetary space craft. It was going to visit Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So in July 1962, the rocket lifted off, full of instruments and technical things and stuff. And it carved a graceful arc of rocketry goodness through the atmosphere, like a soaring giant finger to the Russians. Guess what happened? Boom! 4 minutes after takeoff, it twitched, it wiggled, it wobbled, but before it could crash into a populated city, the safety officer flipped a switch and aborted the mission. $500 million program, $80 million craft. This is Murphy's Law at its best. So what went wrong? Well, two things went wrong. First, the radio guidance system died, in which case the onboard computer took over, but a small typo, a missing hyphen in the line here, caused exaggerated corrections. So it was Arthur C. Clarke called it the most expensive hyphen in history, $80 million. So not to be outdone, NASA thought, we want a space pen. We want to write in space. And so they set about doing this. It was to write upside down, underwater, although your paper gets wet. And they spent $10 million developing this thing, and they failed. And they said to the Ruskies, comrade, how do you do this? And they said, we use a pencil. But this is actually a design myth. It didn't actually happen. It was a subsidiary of NASA that actually developed the pen, and it's called the Fisher Space Pen, and they spent $5 million on it, and you can buy it at Walmart. George W. Sr. was in office here, and this is the Milstar satellite, a military, strategic, and technical radar. It had 4 brothers in orbit by 1994, and it's an essential comms and command control for all future and present conflicts. So Milstar 2, send it up. It had satellite-to-satellite communication, anti-jamming stuff. Again, the rocket soared. Again, the finger was raised to the commie bastards. And again, all 3 rockets fired all at once, and within 89 seconds, boom! The Milstar was hopelessly off course and had to be destroyed to avoid a big crash into a big city, and this is Murphy's Law again at its best. So what went wrong this time? Well, an engineer modified the data to make a necessary change, but re-entered it wrong, entered the decimal place in the wrong spot. It should have been found, but cutbacks, as they are, it never was found. So that was $400 million for the launch, $750 million for the ship, for a decimal point. But what better way to gloss over such issues as to go large? And there's none larger than a trip to Mars. So they said, let's go to Mars! So the Mars Climate Orbiter went off to the red planet. I mean, it's got to be a good idea, right? Surely. So in 1998, a rocket was launched, the MCO, which went to orbit Mars, report back with, photos and stuff. What wonders would be sent back? What glorious pictures? What wonderful information? Not much. Can you imagine the atmosphere and mission control at this point? You know, not good. So MCO entered the atmosphere at pace and on time. It just kept on going. It turns out that the guys at Lockheed Martin, the subbies, were using imperial data when it was actually ordered by the newfangled metric system by NASA. So it's quite annoying if you're on a long trip, but you know, half a billion miles or kilometres, it's pretty awful. So the lads at Lockheed said, don't panic, man, chill. We've got another one parked out back. We've fixed the units thing, and we've done that for free. And so let's go to Mars again. Whoosh, off it goes. Takes a long time to get to Mars. Again, this time it reached the atmosphere safely, but it just shut down and plunged to its doom, smashing into the surface into a million pieces. And the reason familiar to most computer nerds and what have you was that there's no provision to delete the data that was created in the log files. So the hard drive got full, and it couldn't accept any more commands, so it just didn't. And that's Murphy's Law, and why I am never going to be a space tourist. Thank you.
Clearly a lot of puffs on Mars.